Hey, welcome everybody. This is Chiropractic Older Guys Musings, and I am Dr. Brad Robinson. I'm in Norfolk, Virginia. I'm with Dr. Mike Martin in Berlin, Maryland, and Dr. Terrence McCullough in Laurel, Maryland. And we're here today to talk about conversions, the report of finding. Um, you guys are experts at that. You closed a lot of patients over the years. Want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, you know what? If I'm so bold as to say, there might be some people seeing us for the first time and they think, who are these guys and what do they know? We've been doing it a long time in high volume and we know we do. I'm going to be bold. We know a lot. We've trained all over the country, been outside the country teaching. So, yeah, I mean, if we say 1,000 things today, I can promise you that 990 of them are right, right? So.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, conversions. I don't know. I gave it a lot of thought. It's not a topic that you can land pretty hard on, right? It's kind of a lot of little things, right? So, as usual for me, let me start by saying this. You better be converted if you're going to have conversions, right? I mean, you're not going to get conversions to good, solid care unless your belief in what you're doing and what you're saying and your belief in yourself is there, right? You can't walk into a room with a new patient and essentially talk them into wanting to get healthy and stay healthy for their life unless that's not a commitment you've made, right? So, yeah, if you're walking in there with the intention of just turning them into a 3-2-1 patient, you've lost already. And when I say 3-2-1 patient, you know what I mean? You
Yes.
guys know what I mean. The insurance
Oh,
company 3 times a week, 2 times a week, 1 time a week, and see you later. If that's the premise you're working from, your major premise, then hang on and listen closely, right? When you say that, guys.
Yes.
absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
So, having said that, if that's where you are and that's where I was first in practice, on from the first phone call and day one when the new patient walked into the door, I had no idea where they were going to be in 2 weeks. I didn't have any scripting. I was the king of wing, so to speak. Uh, there was no, yeah, I was reading people and saying what I thought they needed to hear instead of just flat leading them, right? Reading them instead of leading them and just telling them, saying what needed to be said. And that really started, my numbers really rose when I decided to say the same thing and mean the same thing on my day one and day two. And that changed my conversions. Between that and my intention, my conversions were always 90% or better. Um, so the details of that, very simple. They were, started with the first phone call, what did the patient feel like when they got off the phone with you? When they came in the office, what did your office look like? Was it busy? Was it happy? Were there people chatting and smiling and carrying on? And did your front desk CA greet them properly? How long did it take them to fill out the paperwork? Were they in and out of there in less than an hour? That's all important. But what was most important for me, I think, is inside that first day one, what were my first words to them? Did we jump into symptomology? No. I pretty much told them that, yeah, we were going to pay attention to it and we wanted to address it, but that's not what I did and that's not what I thought that they were there for, right? So I thought, not to get into the scripting, basically it was, look, I understand you're here because you have this symptoms. Symptoms first thing show up, or the last thing to show up, first thing to go away. And I can appreciate it. We're going to take care of it. But, and look, this is just paraphrasing, right? But my goals for you are much bigger than that. And then we went into the uniqueness of the subluxation and how the adjustment was going to give them more than just feeling better. It was going to give them the ability to live a life that they didn't even know they could live. And then it was just supporting that from there out. And then everything supported that. And then the day two was showing them what subluxation was, right? Really nailing it, telling them that that was their problem, that they are in the right place, and yes, we can help them. And then this is how long it's going to take, and this is how we're going to help make sure that you can pay for it, right?
Right.
in a nutshell. So, um, specifics of that? Huh? I don't. There are many ways to do specifics of that, right? So,
Well, I think what everybody should appreciate is finding out where you're at right now, right? So all of us, so 42 years in practice for myself, that it's okay to have started from we'll say a 3-2-1 mentality, or to start where you started, right? Which might have been 3-2-1 or pain, or like you said, Mike, winging it and that sort of thing. But accepting that there's leadership or opportunities out there through coaches or mentoring or
yes.
those sorts of things. But and Brad, when I talk to your son or sent your son something, is that for these docs who are listening, where are you when you hear stuff like whatever it is, conversions or 300 a week or 1,000 a week, whatever it might be? What's your first instinct? Do you say, "Huh, I never thought of that. Show me how to do that"? Are you instantly like, "You can't do that"? You're, a negative Nancy, so to speak. So instantly you shut down. And, so for me, that was so powerful in all my learning of first building my belief by by reaching out to people like we're trying to be now and saying, huh, oh, show me more about the subluxation, show me more about scripting, show me more about, right? So that I needed to be led, right, in order to improve my belief, because those were the concepts I wrote down. So my belief system kept growing. It grew and evolved so I could serve better. And then, but the one thing I never had to worry about, which was the number one thing I wrote down, was I always led with care.
Yeah.
I wanted to take care of these people, and I was lucky enough as a chiropractic kid to know I always got adjusted, whether I felt bad, felt good, had a test, had a swim meet, had a
Hmm.
basketball game, whatever it was, I knew I was better with an adjustment. And
Yeah.
I knew I was better with, relatively speaking, more adjusting than less. And I appreciated the aspect of hands-on care for it, the power of the touch and intent from my dad.
Hmm.
And so I always led with care. And then I was also curious as an individual to try to connect with that patient where they were at when they came into the office, right? And if or to use the term, lift them or guide them, or see where you could continue to connect with them, uh, so I could get them the care not only that they needed, but hopefully build their level of want for more care or understanding for more care, uh, through my conviction, my belief, but also then from their belief, right? What do they believe in? Like now in stuff they talk about life effect. I was just curious how it was affecting their life, whatever it was they were experiencing,
Right.
and if they were noticing some of the other things that they didn't think were connected to chiropractic. And in most cases, i.e., most people didn't think about, oh, you're taking, 10 medications. Did you know if you get adjusted and you get healthier, maybe you could cut that down to 5 or 3 or none, right? Those what was his name? Possibility thinking, the Reverend Schuler back in the day, right? Have you thought about these possibilities? And, through that, making that personal connection. And I've said to you guys before, now it's not procedural, it's personal, which is where you where you expose yourself and where you're connecting and where you're transparent in order to build their need. And within all that, Mike, like you said, all these other steps are important. How does your office look? How's your paperwork? Uh, how's the phone answered? Every piece of that is important, but those pieces become important or become easier when they're underneath the lead with care. Why are we doing this? Right? You're
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
that with your staff all the time. Why are we doing this? Well, mine was always like, we're the only ones trying. We're the only ones trying to do this. How, in my case, how sick is Laurel? how many people are in a car accident today, how many people
Hmm.
had a headache, how many people were nauseous, how many people have high blood,
Yep.
we're the only ones trying to care and make a difference. And then one of the big things that I would tell my staff and myself was if I had somebody coming in and they were 30 years old and had never had an adjustment, and my belief system was, well, everybody should be adjusted at least once a week.
Yeah.
Then I'd be like, well, they're 1,500 adjustments behind, right? How are we going
Right,
to,
right, right.
right? How are we going to get caught up?
Yeah, yeah,
So then it was easy to talk about, not just, you know, 4 to 6 months of care, but
yeah.
18 months and then 2 years and then, you know,
Lifetime.
yes, how long do you want to keep it well? And, uh, and you guys know sometimes the people said, oh, I don't want to keep coming forever. And, you wouldn't even acknowledge it. It'd be like, well, we're just
No.
going to keep you coming as long as your body needs to be healthy. Right. And those turn into the people that then do stay because,
Yeah, 20 years later, right?
correct.
Yeah, they're saying, I never had the intention of being here more than, to get rid of my pain, and then
But
they're inviting you to their kid's wedding.
yep. And arguably, whether you like the term or not, you're selling them on the table every time you see them, right? You have to, you know, f- friendly, not friends, that those
Yeah.
sorts of things, and in that, very very difficult, but uh,
Finally.
you are connecting every time on that table, and
Well,
we've talked about palpation is your best, in my opinion, the best tool you have on the
yeah.
table because you can make that point of there it is, and that's the subluxation, and if you
Yeah.
connect that with they feel what you're touching, and then you talk about why that's important
Yeah.
from your belief. It's got your belief system, right? And that's got
Yeah.
to be Stock's decision.
Yeah.
But they got to find that.
Not to get off subject here, and then Brad, I want to hear what you thought, what you heard Terrence say, but you know, if you're not quote unquote selling them at the table every adjustment, you only have them for 3 minutes, probably 3 minutes.
Right.
And then they have the other, 23 plus hours in a day to get crap poured on them from people that are like, I can't believe you're going there once a week for, 20 years and whatever. So if you're not supporting their decision to be healthy, to be saved, to be cared for, in that 3 minutes, man, you're losing that battle too. Anyway, um, Brad, I know.
Two things come to my mind. Number one, patients don't walk into the office wanting lifetime chiropractic care. You have to shift their paradigm. They come
Yeah.
in thinking, I'm in pain, I want to get out of pain, I don't want to spend any money, and I don't want to invest any of my time. So if you're starting from that, and then you're trying to shift their paradigm to accepting, to choosing lifetime chiropractic care, and that's a process. And
Yeah.
and the report of findings or the doctor's report or whatever you call it, um, is just part and parcel to that. And you touched on this, Mike, when you first started sharing, is that it's the whole package from the first phone call to walking into your office. You want to make them want to choose chiropractic care. I remember hearing Jimmy Gregg say many years ago to DE that he would tell his patients, you don't have to go to the chiropractor for the rest of your life. You get to, if you choose to. And it's our job to make sure that they understand the why of what they should do, not only during the initial workup and report of findings and workshop, but it's on a continuous basis. You got to give them a why to inspire them, not to cajole them, but to inspire them to want to come under regular chiropractic care for their benefit, not ours.
Well,
Yeah.
most of that comes with trust, though, right? So, again, I
Yes.
think I've probably said that. I don't know that it'd be like your uncle said, Mike. People might call it a submarine, not a
Yeah.
subluxation.
Yeah.
But what they do know is that I shared with them the necessity of coming and with passion and purpose, built and earned their trust through, again, connection and belief and all the right procedures that you mentioned. Um, so that arguably many of them will say, I just trust Dr. McCullough or Dr.
Hmm.
T, and he told me to do this,
Hmm.
and you've proven it works,
Hmm.
and you've shown your dedication, the extra part of caring, you
Right.
don't, um, if they need to come an extra time, you're not leading. It's my discussion all the time. You're not leading with money. You're leading
No.
with care. You know, it's just so many times that you're proving that with how uh, being available. I had two people last week. I told my son, well, the guy, he's in so much pain he can't get out of bed or the chair. I said, well, did you tell him you'll come by?
Yeah. Right.
Did you get your activator out and
Yeah.
tell him you'll come
Get in the
by?
car. Yeah.
That a woman, she's pregnant, the baby's breech. And when she's there with her husband and son, it's the son is 4 and he's like a motor. She can't
Yeah.
lay down. You can't lay down and do the Webster technique. I can barely you can barely get her adjustment done without him slapping her and jumping around. I said, did you call her and say, come Friday at 1 o'clock when we're finishing up, and we'll take that
Yeah.
5 minutes to do this, and we'll schedule this extra appointment every week till this baby turns, right? Um, and again, not worrying about the money, which I was just with my Cairo group last week. Everybody's bragging about their $70 adjustments and how much money they're collecting. And, but I know for a fact, I went because the next day or whatever, I'm in my office and Tarrant, my son, brings up somebody, Catherine, and he said, well, what's her case average? And she's been coming. I said, well, her case average is $30,000 because she's been coming since she was, for 30 years.
Right.
I said her parents' case average is
Yeah.
$100,000.
Right. Right.
They've been
Right.
coming, I said, and yeah, you might break it down. I don't even know her. I might have collected $25 per visit on her. I
Talk
don't.
about conversion, right?
Yeah, I mean, but my point being that I don't think anybody else in that group who's talking about $70 visits has anybody. And my wife, we looked at it. We probably have over 1,000 people
Yeah.
in our 1,000 visit club
Yeah. Right.
had over 1,000 adjustments.
So yeah,
So,
I had I had the same conversation with a young kid from Sherman yesterday. He's finished his first year, and he's having this conversation with his mom about how to practice, and he thinks like we do, thank the Lord. But I said, would you rather have a a dollar visit average or case average of $70 a visit for 12 visits? Or would you rather have a DVA of $40 or $38 or $42 at 120 visits? You want to brag about your $70 visit? I'm going to brag about my 110 PVA at $42 or $45 a visit.
right,
If you're going to talk just dollars, I mean, it's just, you know, I don't, and that to me, if you say conversions, I'd rather convert a patient to a lifetime 1,000 patient visit average, right? Than convert somebody just to stay till what their insurance runs out.
20 visits. Yep.
Yeah, 20 visits. That's probably the average, right?
Yep.
If it's that, I don't even know if it's that. Because if you're billing insurance, then you're symptomatic treating, and as soon as their symptoms are gone, or if they don't go fast enough, they're gone. So yeah,
Yep.
20, right?
People talk about that again. Insurance. The insurance isn't a dirty word.
No, it's not.
Let them use their
Yeah.
insurance, but make sure you're packaging it or talking about it in the context of, well, they take care of sick care or pain care or whatever, and here's how we handle that. And you got to figure that out.
Would that, yeah.
Right.
Isn't that another way to use the word conversion, right? You're going to convert somebody from their insurance pay to cash pay, right?
Right.
Or Medicare pay to cash pay,
Exactly. Medicare is a
right?
great
You had a
example,
thought?
right? The whole system's designed for pain.
Mm.
not designed for anything else. 12 visits and out, right? That sort of
Yeah.
thing. Because they don't want you to be well. Medicare doesn't want you to be well. They just want to patch you up and kick you out.
Well, that's not what they do, right? That's not what their bottom line
And
is.
that's what the policy is. When you purchase it, or even though we're forced to purchase it, that's what it does. So you can't expect it to do anything else. Don't buy a whatever a junker and expect a Porsche, right? You're not going to get that.
I love Brad's line about, you have two problems. You have a shitty spine and shitty insurance, and I can help you with both of those. Is
Yep.
That's
that what you said?
that's been my, I don't say it quite like that, but I do, but that is the gist of what I would tell people that came in with insurance, especially if we're not in their network. But even there's no, Will Tickle was famous for saying there's no such thing as good insurance for chiropractic.
Yeah,
There really isn't. And that's why the shifting the paradigm is important. And we go back to what is our mission? What is our vision?
right,
My mission has always been to try to get as many people under regular chiropractic care as possible. So it had to be affordable, but it also had to be profitable. So you're
right.
balancing the two out of there. And that's why in a lot of cases the box on the wall didn't work because it wasn't profitable for the doctor. And that's why the $70 to $100 office visit doesn't work, because that doesn't make it affordable for the patient to come in and to bring in their family.
Family.
That's that's why we're a mission based, and that's why we create all our systems to fulfill that mission. And again, you got to shift them from that. That's why leading with money is the wrong thing to do. Leading with
Mm,
length of care, which is really you're trying to get them to lifetime care,
right.
but people
Yeah,
don't walk in with that. You've got to guide them to where take them from where they're from and take them where they need to be. And
yeah.
that's the skill of the process that we utilize on a day-to-day basis.
You
Well, and
know,
when you talk about getting that skill, it drives it back to, I know I've shared this before, are you looking for chiropractic everywhere you go? So you can use that because you got to keep yourself excited in order to
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
continue to engage them and do whatever. So you're, you're constantly searching for it in your home life, in the movies you watch or podcasts or books you read or whatever it is, and transferring that excitement and that passion and that mission and purpose to the patient over and over. And the other thing in a volume situation is you're not doing it to every patient every time. The other art of chiropractic is knowing when that patient needs the connection, right? The extra connection or whatever it might be, in order to keep the fire burning in them, or to keep the connection and the intention high. Uh,
Mm,
that that's the other thing when people say you have conveyor belt, or people just moving. In some ways that's true. You're moving very quickly,
hmm.
but you also have to be, or need to be, intuitive enough to go, whoa, 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 I gotta reconnect with that person. Or you tell them to wait, or you say, hey, hang on, or you use the block, like I said, use the
Yeah.
blocks.
Lock them up.
Come back, wait till it clears. Call if you don't get to
That's
do that.
it.
Make a note, and you call them later and say, "Hey, sorry, I wanted to review this with you again. Make sure I want to get you back in tomorrow, or I'll be in on Saturday. You know, would you stop in? I got some paperwork, but I need to see you," or whatever it
Yep.
might be. Um, it we as we are losing the connection with the old timers, we're losing uh, that connection of that we have a responsibility to take care of our community and to be involved
Yes.
in that
Yeah.
sense. And
And,
now
and
it's all quote corporate profit based. Listen, medicine, they don't want to know their patients. That's the whole problem with medicine. They don't
mhm.
they don't want to know, because if they actually knew that patient, would they do the things that they do? Or would they let that patient come in and tell them the medication they want, even though the doc knows that's not what they need? because they saw it on TV, whatever it might be, you know. So all that, and but those are the things that will keep the fire lit in us,
Yeah.
our the next generation. And unfortunately, nobody's really talking about that.
No.
Ted Williams, I'm aware, talked about
Yeah.
that to you guys all the time. I
Yeah.
was even left. Joe Jancy, Dr. Jancy gets thrown under the bus. The guy, he used to walk around our school and just come in and engage the class. And I have to admit, I half time don't know what he was talking about, but I knew he was passionate about chiropractic, and he
We
was
didn't
very
know what
passionate.
Sid.
Yeah,
We didn't
and
know what Sid was talking about half the time either.
correct, but he was passionate about it, and it made more sense
Yeah. Yeah.
10 years later that he had a mission. He was driven. I mean, and you
Hmm.
have to respect. I
Yeah.
respect that, and that's what's been lost. That all the schools became about numbers and money, right?
Yeah.
As
Well, you
opposed
said it. You
to
said at
mission.
the beginning, the word care just doesn't have the same meaning as it. Health care. There's no care there,
No.
right? I'd like to keep care in chiropractic. Yeah.
Yep.
We could talk about I constantly use the word intention, and some it's overused, and I probably overuse it, but that's what I'm talking about.
Not,
I
it's
mean,
not
when you
overused.
walk in, you walk into that office in the morning, and your intention from being there is to love and care people, and to create a situation where they get to love and care their people because they have the ability to do so.
Yep.
We lose sight of that sometimes, right? And I guess that's the friction rub, right? We lose the sight of that, and then it becomes a job,
Yes.
you know.
Well, that's why I'm going to say all to me, I think the biggest thing for me was all these concepts and concepts in life. I shouldn't just say chiropractic of service and love and
Hmm.
connection and intent and purpose and mission. All those are the things that kept me going.
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah.
it's just dollar per visit, if it's just PVA, OVA, new patients visit, that won't do it.
No,
if it's
it won't do it.
if it's capacity and intention and love and service and giving and caring, that's
Yep.
what that's what will keep you going. That's what will create
Yeah.
urgency for you to keep going and showing up every day. That's why you'll pop up to go back to serve. That's what I always
Yeah.
said. I would come home and do my meditation for 19 minutes, and my wife would laugh that that tape would click, and I'd pop right up and like run out the door. And she'd be like, "How do you do that?" I said, "I have to do it.
You
I have
have to do it. Yeah. Yeah.
to do it."
Listen, it's a volume practitioner. You guys understand this as better than anybody, except other high volume guys. That is it's like paramount to take care of yourself like that because we're getting our asses handed to us all day, every day, right?
Yeah.
If you take 300 people a day, 200 people a day, and how many of those 200 are actually engaged in their care, appreciative of their care, compared to how many are saying, "I'm broke, you fix me." And if I'm not fixed, then it's your fault. You know, that's the nature of society. And so if you're not doing your 19 minutes, if you're not exercising, running, doing all those things that you need to do, um, yeah, it's a losing battle, right?
Yeah.
It's a negative attrition.
The heavy responsibility. It's a,
Yeah,
take
yeah.
serious the responsibility, right? That
And I'm not bitching. I am so grateful and thankful for what was given to me. This sacred trust is, Sid would say,
Yep.
yeah,
But that again, I'll keep saying it. Nobody's talking about that.
no,
Nobody's passing on. I mean, it's one of the few places you're probably going to hear about that. I know you were talking about that other podcast you shared, Mike. That's even that group. Nobody's sharing that.
no.
They're. I'm being very cautious. I don't want to be pontificating to people, like, oh, back in the old days, blah 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 blah. As
Back in
opposed,
the day.
yeah, as opposed to, I tell my son, I'm like, you should be thinking very contrarian. People don't want to do volume. They don't want to charge a fair fee. They don't want to see families. Uh, they don't want to save money, whatever it might be. They don't want to pay off their house all of a sudden. That's not a cool thing. Like all these things, those are all the things you should be doing.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So because that's what people want,
Now
right?
you,
They
you sound
actually
like a
want that.
boomer.
Yes.
Jen
I,
Jones, man. We're Jen Joneses. We're not boomers.
I'm a total boomer.
There's a new generation that they squeezed in between boomers and Xers. And it's called Jen Jones.
Uh,
And we're the original Xers. Like we drank out of hoses. We did all that shit before the Xers did.
oh shit.
But we have a little bit of the boomer. We want to succeed. We want to lead. It's a real good mix of both of them. You have to look at it. It's a really good because I never felt like I fit in both of them. But anyway, whatever. I think you both fall there. So
That's funny.
So I'm going to bring us back to the original conversation and
thank you.
versions. We talked about intention as shifting their paradigm, and that in the report of findings, one of the things that I found very critical was to have the significant other present
Yeah, no
at
question.
the report of findings, at the doctor's report. And the reason being is it's easier for me to explain what the individual it has face to face rather than me telling the patient and the patient going home and telling their spouse. And the other thing is the spouse generally wants to follow the care program more than the patient does. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in a report of findings and asked for a commitment, and the guy was going, I don't know if I want to spend the money. I don't know if I spend the time. And the wife looks at him and says, I'm sick of you complaining. We need to do this. How do we sign up for it?
Yeah.
And then the how you parlay that into your 14-day rule. It
Yeah.
provides you an opportunity to bring in more patients, get the family in, it's got to be, again, affordable yet profitable. We always talk about the length of time first, the visit frequency second, and the money last. Where in many of the practices that I've seen is the money's always first. Your care plan was based upon what the insurance company was going to pay instead of what the person needs for
Yeah.
lifetime care and how to get that way. So that's what we worked on all these years to try to master that. I don't know if we ever mastered it, but
I don't think we
we got pretty
mastered
good
any
at
of
it.
it.
Never.
When I was with CJ WLP, there was a phrase that he used to use, and I still use it, but I'm sure I changed it to fit me. When people were always asking about the money first, I would say first, let's find out if your commitment to your health is important enough for us to continue with this conversation in this exam before we even talk about money.
Right.
And they would always bring it back, and I'd say, is your commitment to what I just showed you, the subluxation and getting well, enough? Is your commitment to taking care of that enough? And then we'll move forward and we'll make, we'll figure out a way for you to be able to afford this. And
Right.
in various ways, I've said that through the years, just to get away from talking about the money first. Let's talk about what your problem is. Let's talk about what brought you in here and how to get you well and how long it's going to take. And then we can figure out what your fee is going to be, right? And you always had your fee. Your
Yep.
fee's your fee. It's set. Yeah, you might have some, what do you call it? Terrible. I know words jump out of my brain. When you have somebody that just can't afford it and you're gonna
Hardship.
hardship case. Geez, many Christmas. You always had your
Bail you out
hardship.
again.
Huh?
Bailed you out again.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it. That's why I keep you guys around.
Yeah, your hardship cases. I always tell patients, I wish I could give it away for free to everybody, but I can't. Staff wants to get paid. The rent has to get paid. What I want to do is stay in fair exchange.
Yep.
And if the person is committed to the care plan, we're going to find out something that's going to fit with their budget. We don't want to know how little they can pay. We want to know how
Right.
much they can pay for their care.
Right. No, I
Cool.
agree. You had to start with what, here's what's wrong.
Yep.
Always had to start with that. You have to understand what, that's why I liked X-ray. It was always the easiest, and they were most interested in
Yes.
thing that was concrete, and you could relate
Absolutely.
back to the
Absolutely.
where you stuck your thumb and they felt it, right? Those were the two biggest components. And if you could, if you put up an X-ray, this is, the classic, right? This is good. Here's what it should look like. Here's what yours
Hmm.
looks like, and they could acknowledge that that wasn't good, like, oh, that's not good, doc, or see
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
concept. Then they could see a part of the
Yeah.
subluxation, right?
Yeah.
That osseous part of the subluxation, and
Look
you
at
can then
yep.
connect it. Then you now, again, I don't like the term all the time. Now you're giving it value, but now you're giving it a real life connection to them that,
Mhm.
they're 40 and they have a 70-year-old spine.
Yeah.
Like, how do we get you back in where you need to be,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah. Look at this
then,
degenerative change, right? Look at this degenerative change. It's taken 30 years to get to this point.
yep,
And that subluxation I just told you about, it was the seed to this degenerative change. 30 years. We're not
yep,
going to fix this in 3 months,
yep,
right? We might fix symptomology, but we're not going to fix this.
yep.
Get correction in this after 30 years and 3 months. So let's talk about a year.
That's why the orthodontic metaphor is so good.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
I would look at the person, did you wear braces growing up? Oh, yeah. Well, how long did you wear
Yeah.
them for?
Yeah.
3 years. Well, what if you took them off too soon?
Yeah.
My teeth would go back. Well,
And,
what do you think is going to happen to your spine?
and guess what? Your parents paid $3,000 cash for that because there was no insurance for orthodontics.
Back
Right.
then. Now it's 6,000.
Yeah. And there's still very little insurance for
And there's still very little insurance. Absolutely.
Anyway,
Yep.
good.
Yeah,
Cool.
you did. Those
I
are all,
think
you got to paint the picture, right?
Yeah.
Paint some sort of picture. Yeah.
I think posture and weight distribution also add to that. I use X-ray on,
Yeah.
I would
They
say
can see posture.
98% of the people that come into my office for that very reason. Um, and the posture and the weight distribution add to that.
Yeah.
And a word about X-ray. Um, the ACA has come out with their red flag rules that you should only X-ray under certain circumstances. I think I've shared this before. Lori went through proton therapy back a few years ago, and she had to have 39 proton therapy treatments over a 7-week period of time. Every time she went in there, she had a 2-view cervical taken so that he could get the beam correct. And I looked at the radiation oncologist and said, "Hey, isn't that a little bit? Isn't that quite a bit of radiation?" Go, that's nothing. So from that day forward, I never worried about
Look
X-raying
at
or
that.
re-X-raying a
Yeah.
patient. Yeah,
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's, again, there's a white paper or something on by that Mark Student. I feel like I shared that with you guys. I'll find it. He gives all the rationale of the necessity of X-ray and how
No, I've
I'll,
never seen that.
I'll find that. Um,
Deed Harrison and that did a great job with their
Right.
review of the literature too. Same thing.
yep. Yeah, we just, again, it's the craziest thing. Because
Yeah.
if we were to give some takeaways, it would be, um, like you said, how are you setting up your office, to I always say easy in, easy out. It's also got to be, if people are going to come frequently, it's got to be easy in and easy out.
Absolutely.
They can't be there 30 minutes regularly. They can need to be there 15 minutes and know they can count on that. But those aspects of it, but people need to start thinking about leading, like I said, leading with care. What's their belief system about how much they should be adjusted, right? If they're in a crisis, how, that's, people always made fun of daily care. I'm like, if you're in a crisis, how often do you want to come?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Every day. Are you connecting with the patient in an honest way? Are you, because you're interested, not as a strategy, but because it's going to improve your care? Uh, then it's not just procedural, right? And breaking, things have to start as a script or a procedure, but they have to evolve into you, or you have
Yes.
to evolve it into you.
Absolutely.
And then, my one homework piece for people would be, will you sit down and write out 1,000 visit care plan?
Well, that's a challenge, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done this, and people go, oh, and I'm like, so the first 100 should be pretty
Very,
significant,
yeah,
like exam, X-ray, your report, you
yeah.
know, your those first 12, how you're locking it in. Maybe even your first 40 or 50, you might have like we said, continuing visit communication, or you're trying to hit certain points. But then it might be re-X-ray at 50, right? A re-exam every
Yeah.
whatever you do. But like for me, it was all right. Then 50 to 100 was all right. Then they're this, and then 100 to 200 was the. It's big gaps, but
Mhm.
at least if you take the time and write some stuff down. I mean, it's the other homework piece of writing a hundred reasons why you should have a PVA of 200. Why should you, the individual, have a
Yeah.
PVA of whatever you want it to be? What I don't give it. You
Well,
be 10 or it could be 10,000, but why do you think you should have it? And people then
yeah.
they make it too hard. It could be uh, I'll make more money. It's okay. I'll feel more
I'll see.
successful. I'll
I'll
walk.
be happier.
I'll be happier, right? But it's still
Yeah.
hard to find 100.
Yeah.
That one's actually harder than the thousand, because the thousand,
Yeah, that would be harder for me. I mean, because look, if you get past the first year, then after that, it's easy. Once a year, I mean, once a week for
Yeah.
however many years. I mean, that it's
might
got to get
X-ray them
past that
you
first.
might X-ray them annually or buy it every other
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
You, but you could write in there flare up. They're gonna have a flare up.
Yep.
How are you gonna handle it?
Yeah.
Right? What are you
Yeah.
gonna do? Um, how many people
But a
do you,
hundred reasons why, that's tough.
it's
That'd
a
be
hard
tough.
it's hard.
Yeah.
That's a good
Challenge
homework
everybody to do
assignment.
that.
100
Huh?
reasons why you should have a PVA of
I'm gonna do
100.
it. I mean, I'm not in there every day, but I'm gonna do it
I
because I've
think
never
that
done
that would
anything
be a
like
good
this.
exercise.
100 reasons why.
It's hard.
Then
Yeah,
a
It's hard.
thousand, then a
Most
thousand,
people,
then a 1,000 visit care plan.
yes.
I'm
That
not gonna say that I'm not gonna set myself up for failure, but it's gonna be hard.
Well, most people make it harder, Mike, than like I said. They'll think they have to have all these,
Oh
I
no, I'm not like
stock,
that. I've been doing this long
Socratic type.
enough.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll write down goofy shit. I mean, I've been doing this long enough.
exactly.
It's still gonna be difficult
It is. Even when you do that, it's difficult.
because my wife tells me I have to. It'll have stuff like that in there.
Absolutely. And that's okay. That's good.
That's not goofy. That's true.
Yeah. Right.
Brad, why don't you close us out by telling what people why they should watch us?
Well, you've got a treasure trove of experience and knowledge right here. We've got over 100 years of practice, 100, almost 150 years
Yeah,
practice experience, um, lifetime experience, and this is what people need to hear. You're not hearing it in the schools. You're not hearing it in the seminars. You have to go outside the box, and I think we're the outside the box people. So I would suggest that tune in next time and share this with your friends. Tell other
yeah.
people about it.
Yeah.
We're not here to try to sell you anything or to market anything. We're here to change people's lives
Get
for
you
the
thinking
better,
differently.
to make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, you can find us on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel called Cogs Musing, and you can find us on Facebook at Cogs Musing. That's COG Musings.
Perfect.
I won't say we're the original gangsters because we by far are not, but we
No,
are a couple of old gentlemen. So older gentlemen, not old, older.
Older,
So
mature.
yeah. So
mature.
pass it on.
All right,
All
guys.
right, guys.
Until next time, thank you
Yeah,
so
man.
much.
Thanks,
Have a
guys.
great day. Have a great
Talk
week.
to you
Love you guys. See
Bye
you.
bye.